So yeah, please welcome Taylor Ryan.
Thank you. All right, so I'm going to move very quickly. Normally, I would say to cover this type of stuff, we're looking at something in the way of probably a 2-hour endeavor, and we're down to about 45 minutes to an hour. So I'm going to show a lot of crazy stuff. I came at this from a little bit of a different perspective. I think the concept is I hate agencies, and I'm going to show you why, but I also think that anybody potentially could be their own agency. And because the guys in here, I wanted to show something really interesting, just to give you guys a bit of perspective. So this is Brand Movers in terms of their growth and their website. Their DR is 45, and in terms of organic traffic, pretty abysmal. If you look over at a company called Valuer, the company that I work with, basically, we really got started in terms of hustling around January, and you can see what I would conclude to be explosive growth and a solid track record. So take stuff for face value. You're going to find that a lot of agencies overpromise, and I think anybody in here could do agency work, and that's what I'm trying to convey to you guys. You don't have to join the group of guys that have the biggest name or have the biggest budgets in order to crush this. I guarantee you the gentleman that was sitting here probably makes 10 times more what I make, but when the rubber meets the road in terms of traction, I think your boy still holds down the fort. So I want to show you some really cool stuff today. And yeah, I'm all for questions, so feel free to call stuff out as I get there. But I think there's a lot of fun stuff to go into. Let me just make sure that this is the right presentation. For just a show of hands, who here has seen me over like the last week? I've done like 4 different presentations. Shit. Okay, cool. All right, about half the room. Awesome. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Google Success Online. I think there's a ton of great stuff that they continue to do, so thank you for having me. But yeah, without further ado, let me dive in. Cool. So a little bit about me. I'm Chief Marketing Officer of Valuer. Valuer basically connects startups with corporations. The whole concept is basically that we're trying to trigger this innovation within these large companies and get them to work with more startups. And that's kind of the general way that things are going. It's a really cool place to be in. My background is basically, I've had 6 now different startups and 11 years plus of marketing experience. Published a couple of ebooks. I've definitely written for entrepreneur.com and a couple other places. So yeah, tons and tons of stuff. To give you a little bit more background of why I kind of have this strange mindset, it's because I've consulted on SEM, SEO, and content for a number of years, back in DC, as well as just kind of out here for fun. I am teaching a growth hacking course over at Talent Garden, so for those that see some value in this, hopefully you're potentially interested in taking that course. There is a coupon code there for 15% off, and it takes place on May the 21st through the 22nd. I'm not going to read through the table of contents. I'm going to jump right in. So my goal for today is to provide value. I am trying to make sure that everybody leaves here with something they never knew that they could do, or something that essentially incentivizes people in order to hustle and get ahead. I've already kind of asked the question of why you're here, but how many people are currently working in an agency now? A show of hands. Okay, one guy. All right, you're the guy. Cool. All right, I think that's part of the crux of today, is getting into an agency or freelancing. And yeah, I think I just want to dive in. So marketing is all about systems, and this is something that I'll continue to say forever and ever. If you understand one system really well, you can start to capitalize on all of these other systems. And that's what I want to really bring out into the forefront, is how you can do that using a number of different tools that are out there, and it's just kind of mixing and matching and finding new, unique reactions from doing it. So where do you start? The concept is, you're interested in potentially either joining an agency or being your own agency. And that to me is kind of framed around the shell of, I want to be a freelancer, right? So there's a number of different ways to do that, and I think the most important thing is to figure out which industry you want to be in, right? So if you have no desire to do anything with biochem, or you're not super technical and maybe you're only into consumer products that are of something in the way of makeup or beauty, what do the guys say, the Sephora Yeah. So maybe that's like your brand. You really want to like do something for them. I think there's a lot of different ways to start to narrow the focus. And I would say that inside of these slides is where the real value's at. And I'm going to show you a couple of really cool things that allow you to kind of get after that. But the idea is to really start figuring out what is it that you want to do. And that's so challenging before you graduate because it's one of those things that every door that you open means you close millions more, right? And that can be incredibly frustrating. But also setting expectations in terms of being able to say, I want to go in that general direction, and I know that it's either going to be a harder slog or it's going to be, I don't know, it's going to be my dream job, can be really challenging one way or the other. So I love this GIF. It's one of my favorites. It's basically this guy on Tinder that's setting a different expectation of what the user is going to perceive him as. So it's like, yeah, I like playing darts, and then he shoots the dart, and then inside it's your heart, and then he's like, yeah. So it's one of those things that you need to present yourself differently, right? You need to stand out. And that means from the perspective of somebody that wants a freelancer, I need to see a polished resume. I need to see a badass portfolio. I need to see a LinkedIn profile that gives me the feeling that I can turn over part of my business to you, and I'm confident that you can come out the other side with success. And the photo thing just always blows my mind. Fucking smile. Like, it's the weirdest thing when you see like prison-looking photos of people that are applying for jobs. It's so easy to smile. It's crazy. So there's a bunch of different templates within this slide alone that I think are extremely valuable. So if you don't have a resume, there's a ton of resume builders here at the bottom. I think everybody should have an online portfolio. I don't care if you're not a designer, if you're a writer, if you do SEM, if you're a developer, I want to see what you've developed. Get me a Git repository that I can check out. Let me see your work. And that's a huge deal. It's incredibly important. So one of the fun things that I always put out there, and it has a couple of different reactions. So seriously, if you're average, you're better than most. And I hate to shit on the guy that was just here, but it's like, dude, you've been doing this for 4 years. Like, you could have scaled this thing. And telling everybody, it's like, hey, like, we're the best in Denmark. It's like, cool, what about best in the world? Right? So realize that you're up against a lot of other people that want to do the same work as you, and stopping short of reaching out to somebody and saying, hey, I'd like to give it a try, is all in here, right? More than likely, everybody in this room has at least done something amazing. And so if that's the general direction you want to freelance, then let's get fucking to it. And I want to show you some cool ways to do that. So there's a million different sites that I think you could look into, and they're in the notes there, but I'm going to pass on that. So finding potential clients in terms of being a freelancer is what this is all about. It's about building your portfolio, it's about getting work, it's about getting the experience, right? So building your target list can be really difficult. Because again, it's one of those things, open one door, closing millions others. So I've already done a lot of the work for you. I think startups are a really easy way to kind of get involved. So if I open up a new tab and I drop this in here, this is a list that I've put out the other day, but it's just as relevant for finding freelance projects. So one of the most underutilized areas of becoming a freelancer is going after job boards and saying, look, I'm not looking for a full-time job, but in the meantime, while you're waiting, I'd be happy to supplement what kind of work you need done. What are you looking for? I saw your job description, it's made for me. I'm not looking for a job, I'm a freelancer. Check out my stuff. You'd be surprised how easy that is, and it works like crazy. So I've listed all the job boards that are relevant and Facebook groups within Copenhagen. Those are there for you. Use them. I'm not a huge job board person in terms of trying to find a job, but for freelancing, it's not bad. In terms of startup listings, there's a ton of different sites that you can essentially find all the startups within Denmark. Most of these people are bootstrapped, and a lot of them are willing to at least give you a shot. More than likely, some of them a little bit of money to be able to put it in your pocket, but I'll get to some of that stuff later. And then in terms of agency lists, if you Google the phrase Copenhagen agency or Copenhagen marketing agency, you're going to find a lot of stuff. And more or less, these are some of the sites that you can really start applying right away and finding the agencies that maybe speak to you. And I think there's a lot of opportunities there. I've also included on this tab basically a couple of sites for an online portfolio. Please get an online portfolio. It takes like no time at all. So that is that. I'm going to jump back in. So as I already mentioned, job ads are a goldmine. The way that you can apply to those is exactly what I was just saying, which is essentially like, look, I know you're looking for a full-timer, but while you're waiting, I think there's an opportunity here, let's talk. News announcements was one of those things that I think a lot of people undervalue, and at one of my previous presentations, I didn't actually get a chance to show. So you'll find that a lot of people aren't doing this. So let's say startup funding Copenhagen. And then news. Cool. So the idea here is that you can essentially find anybody that now has a new influx of money. So the concept is, if they got money to spend, then guess who's looking for a little bit of that change on the side? I'm trying to freelance. I'm looking for an opportunity. I hear you guys just got a lot of money. You know who likes money? Me. There's an opportunity there. And so the idea is very simple. Every few days, throw this through. See what companies have been announced. Even if it's a really large-scale VC company that just got funded, that means that they're also going to start looking to fund startups as well, which means you should start looking at the people that immediately enter their portfolio. That's an opportunity. And that's something you should run after. There's so many different ways to get it. So one thing to obviously kind of look into there. I think batch connects, and now I can do it because I have internet access. Batch connects are super easy, and everybody has a network. You maybe don't realize it. I connect my 4 or 5 different email addresses to this on a daily basis, not daily, monthly basis, and the idea is that I'm able to build a gigantic network out of it. So for those that are not super familiar with the way that you go about it, you hop on LinkedIn, and then we go to My Network. And yeah, a bunch of people from previous presentations. So you're going to hit more options down here. And then the idea is that you can essentially pull in all of the email connections from your other email addresses. Especially if you're looking for a job or you're looking to just get kind of going with your freelancing, your first post that goes out on this platform, LinkedIn, will essentially have more impressions overall because your immediate first connections tend to get more exposure off of the first thing that you post. So it'll be the most popular thing that you post in 2 or 3 days after these connections start coming through. It's a really fun way to hijack it, and it's fast and it's easy, and you're building your network. Obviously, sometimes you got to remove like the ex-girlfriend, ex-boyfriend kind of thing, but it's really easy to build this up. It's fast. So that would be one growth hack I would absolutely use if I was looking to get into something in the way of freelancing. Cool. So I think one of the hard parts about getting into freelancing is, again, you have to show this portfolio. People need to see that you've done the job. And sometimes maybe you haven't done it yet, right? Maybe you haven't gotten a ton of professional experience. Maybe you've had a couple of like examples in class where you've done a project, but nothing's actually come to fruition. That's what a lot of these freelance sites are all about. So you have Upwork, Fiverr, Guru, Conquer. Conquer's a great one for marketing. QEmploy is a Danish company that's always looking for people as well. The concept is very simple. Get a couple of quick wins so that you can point to logos and say, look, I've done this. I have the confidence in myself and these other companies' logos on my portfolio to say, I can do the job. That's basically a proof of concept. You just need to show other people that you're capable of doing the work. I'm just curious, does this make sense to people-ish, sort of? Okay, cool. So some of the things that are really hard to deal with initially are you probably have to go below market rate to get some of these gigs, which sucks, right? Because you're getting paid what you deem to be less than your worth. But the idea is, again, you have to show this validation from other companies that, hey, I've done the job for these guys, they're happy with me, here's what I can do for you. And you know, keep it small. I don't think you should be taking on complete gigantic website development projects that are potentially 500 hours worth of work for something to the effect of $50. You know, that's not a good call. But I think it is a pure portfolio build, and I think there's a lot of opportunities here. I mean, all over the place. So outreach and tools are a lot of fun, and this is some of the more growth hacky stuff that I really enjoy, and I think a lot of people really understood some of the other stuff that I presented in regards to job search. But I don't see job search being terribly different from being a freelancer. It's just finding a job that's somewhat temporary, a project-based job versus a regular salary in a 9-to-5. So here's a bunch of different tools to find anyone's email. The concept is maybe somebody isn't super active on LinkedIn, and the concept is you've looked at all of these different startups or different companies and you're like, I'd like to see if I could do something cool for them. I dig their brand. The concept is you have Hunter, you have Twofer, Find That Lead, Clearbit, Adapt. I mean, all of these are so simple. And the concept is you can use the templates that I've included inside of that previous link. It's basically outreach templates for LinkedIn. It's the second template in there in terms of basically your real messaging, what you're trying to get across, which is, hey, first name, I love your company, blank, whatever the name of the company is. I've always wanted to work in whatever the industry is. I think you guys have something amazing, and here's some of my work. I'd love to talk to you guys about getting involved with blank. Really simple, doesn't need to be like a mile-long outreach template, and it does the job. It starts the dialogue. And the reality is for every 5 of these, you might hear back from 1. For every 10, you're going to get at least 1 positive response where it's like, okay, well, think about it, or maybe you should give me a call. We can do coffee or a Skype meeting, whatever. None of these are foolproof, and so you have some of the tools that are on the left side there that basically allow you to make sure that the emails are real. That way you're not hitting a bunch of bounce emails, and you're not necessarily ending up in the spam folder. So a couple of different ways to kind of get in there. This is where we start getting to some of the next level stuff. Who here has ever used Mixmax or Yesware? Just out of curiosity. Oh, bummer. Okay. They're basically like adding an extension onto, well, they are. It's adding on an extension to LinkedIn, Gmail, that basically allows you to have a CRM and a flow, like a deal flow. So you can label different things. You can also send out mail merges. You can use a lot of these templates and send it out a bunch at a time. The concept is very simple. If you're trying to reach a number of people, and this is a numbers game, make no mistake, you just need a couple of clients to really get things going. So the concept is, why not automate this? And for those that are not familiar, I think a lot of people have heard of it, but Calendly allows you to avoid some of the mess of scheduling. So it gives people the sense that this person has a lot of this figured out. I don't need to go, when can we meet? What day? That kind of stuff. Gives people a chance to actually schedule directly into your calendar, which saves them time, which as a client I would like, and I do like, but it also makes things go quicker so you can fill up a calendar full of meetings. And that's entirely possible with very little experience. And there's tons of YouTube videos that basically say this is how it's done. I think Ninja Outreach and BuzzStream are very helpful, but I think they're a little too advanced for potentially what is essentially outreach to people to try to get a freelance gig. So skip those for the time being. Some of the outreach tips I think are really kind of unique are probably the subject lines are the most undervalued. So some of the stuff that I've seen work really well is, I love your company, right? I mean, you could put it out to anybody and they're like, oh, wow, I'm special. Also, I feel great about myself now. One of the other ones that I think I like a lot is word on the street is you're looking for a Taylor Ryan. That's me. Insert your own name, obviously. But it's one of those things. I think there's a lot of opportunities in terms of customizing some of the different outreach methods and seeing what works for you. Whenever I do some of these emails, I also connect with 3 different people from the company on LinkedIn. So that's a founder or CEO or partner. Then underneath that, it's a hiring manager, somebody that would make potentially a decision, so director level. And then somebody that would basically be either like a regular worker on the team or somebody that's like a marketing manager, somebody that's doing some of the work. So the idea is that you're hitting it at every single level. Concept being, if you're trying to get in to do some freelance marketing work and everybody in the company that's within kind of the marketing era or department has heard of you, you have an opportunity there. And again, the templates are available to you. I basically have done the templates with this in mind. 3 different people from each company. It takes a little bit of extra effort, but it's totally worth it. In terms of giving stuff away, I absolutely agree with the last speaker. I think giving value is what it's all about, right? So I think in the sense of reaching out to some of these companies and saying, here are 5 social posts that I've created for your company, and some of the other previous previous presentations that I've given, I've actually shown how to automate almost all of this. But in terms of building 5 social posts, you could get on Canva, you can jump on Envato and basically create a bunch. If you're okay with Photoshop, you could do that too. It takes 0 time to create social posts. But the idea is that most companies feel like it's work, and therefore they're like, oh wow, somebody did a bunch of like free work for us. What's this person's name? What are they all about? Should we talk to them? Yes, absolutely. So, I mean, it's blog posts, social media. SEO reports are so easy. So if you Google the phrase free SEO report and screen grab it and send it to somebody, they're gonna think you know something, which is pretty wild when you think about it. So the concept is, why not do that? Give away something that you found for free and see what they think of it. Then the next question is, cool, so what do you want to do with us? Well, I'd like to come in and start hustling with your marketing team and show you where you could have some quick wins. Then when you get home, Google like, what are quick wins for helping out a marketing team as a freelancer? There's a million different ways in, and I think a lot of this stuff works, but it's giving away a little bit up front in order to get a lot more at the end. And, you know, and to what I'm doing here, I mean, I'm not being paid to be here, right? Like, this is a bit of that giving economy just the same. I'm seeing what I can get out of potentially doing a lot of these free events in order to get some value elsewhere, whether it's an opportunity to speak somewhere else in the future. Maybe for those that are interested in internships with Valuer, I'm always open to new interns. But the concept is, you never know where it's going to come from. For 1 out of every maybe 5 good things that you do, 1, it's good fucking karma points, even though I don't believe in that. But 2, I think it's just good to do the right thing. And sometimes it's really cool to have people like, hey, I remember you. You're the person that wrote that blog post for me a while back. And it's like, yeah, what's up? Well, I have this other person that they look like they're ready for like a writer. Would you be open to meeting with them? And all of a sudden you're in it, right? And that's a freelance gig. That's how it works. This whole concept had a name a while ago. This is not the Mandela effect. It's the Ben Franklin effect. The concept is little favors make people want to do something for you. The concept is Ben Franklin used to go to people's houses and loan them small things they didn't need, and then he'd come back and ask for, I think his most crazy one was like, I need 10 fucking horses. And the guy's like, hey, I loaned you a bowl of sugar, you want 10 horses? He's like, come on. It's one of those crazy things. You'd be surprised. People feel like they're indebted to you. You do one nice thing for people, they're like, I kind of owe them. It's something to bear in mind, and I think it's something you could definitely make it work to your favor. So there's a lot of different things that I can go into on that, but I got to move on. And yeah, I think I've already kind of touched upon all this giving value stuff, but I think referrals are probably the biggest thing that you'll take from that. But again, I'll move on. For those that are interested in potentially going down the path of starting their own agency, I got to tell you, it's so easy to do this. And just for shits and giggles, everybody that works at Valuer, look away. So this is mine. So I think it's always good to have side projects and stay busy, but it's not very hard to create this. This is a WordPress site built off a template. It took me a matter of probably 6-7 hours to basically warp a template, make sure that hosting was set up correctly, add some images, and write some text. And every once in a while, somebody will hit me up. I'm mostly doing it just for fun to see what I can work at and see what I can break. That's kind of the idea. Anybody here can do this. I'm not magical, right? So I would say if you have the opportunity to jump in with somebody that's a little more technical than you, it's a lot faster. But this is part of the dance, is learning this stuff. So let's say that you do end up building a very basic framework for a website. And by the way, there's a million different free sites out there. I mean, we all can think of one. So Wix, Squarespace, Simple Site, all these places are really just simple to be able to say, yeah, this is what I do. So the concept is, now you want to actually gain some traction. I can't tell you how many agencies that I've met with out here that don't have much in the way of traction, because maybe it's one of those things, the cobbler's children have no shoes, where they try to give more advice and they don't really take their own. So the concept is, in terms of getting listed, I have about 15 different links here that have sites that you can get a do follow backlink, which is essentially good SEO juice. And the concept is, you get a couple of listings on these things and it starts to build your site value. Over time, you're actually ranking for words as you start to put out more content. It's really easy. It's one of those things you can do when you're hungover. I mean, it doesn't take much time. If you want to get onto the next level of it, I would say work out some virtual assistants through Upwork. Costs $5, and essentially you have somebody that's automating all this for $5 at a time. I expect 20 websites over the span of 1 hour, go. And yeah, it works really well. So that's one way around it. I do talk about this a lot, and I think there's a lot of amazing things that come out of doing one really good piece of content. Now that I have internet access, and for those that haven't seen, I'm actually going to pull this thing out. So has anybody here heard of Novo Resume? Yeah? Cool. All right, it's a Danish startup. So the idea is Novo Resume. I think I misspelled it. Yeah, there we go. I'm not going to make them pay for it. Yeah, here we go. Elon Musk. So one of the most popular pieces of content that these guys put out is essentially, it's Elon Musk's resume. Elon Musk doesn't need a resume, right? I mean, the guy's pretty well known. But the concept is this single piece of content ended up scaling them beyond, I think it's 2 million unique visitors a month. And I can show you how I can see that. The concept is they thought through something relatively clever, and this is it. I mean, this isn't magic, right? This isn't anything spectacular, but let me show you what that means for them. This is Ahrefs for those that really want to get into more of the SEO side of things. The cool thing about it is I can see competitors' websites, I can see what kind of stuff happens when somebody's doing something right, but more interesting, I can see top pages or top content. So I want to see what page or what piece of content is ranking the best for them. And wow, okay, it's not Elon Musk anymore. Good for them. These guys are scaling really, really well. I'm jealous. Yeah, the concept is it used to be not too long ago, it was Elon Musk's resume, but what ended up happening over time was they continued to basically capture more keywords as their site value increased. So if I go back to the overview, their organic traffic that all started with that one really amazing viral hit, which basically I believe hit somewhere around here. They're looking at 1.8 million unique visitors every month, which is mostly from scaling a really nice piece of content that wasn't that hard to do. And there's a million different versions of that. The one that I normally reference is the folks over at Dollar Shave Club. I think every industry probably has 2 or 3 of these where it's just like this unicorn piece of content that just caught like wildfire. So to the guy's credit who spoke before me, there's absolutely value in creating great content. If you are creating a site for something in the way of your portfolio, or you're creating something in the way of an agency type site, I think adding something in the way of the ability to grab people, a lead grabber, or something that converts, basically lead capturing is what we call it. These are all very simple tools. Everybody should know how to use MailChimp. I think MailChimp, considering how it's essentially free, should be able to integrate it with just about 1,000 other tools, and it allows you to be able to get people to see your best content and then convert them immediately. I don't have Hello Bar in there, and I think Hello Bar is actually a good one as well. It's exit pop-ups and that kind of stuff. A million different things to look at. In terms of continuing to build backlinks, I think Google stacking is one of the better ways to get stuff done. I've had a lot of success with it. It's basically, obviously, if you have a business and it's registered, then hook it up on Google My Business. Most of the time when I've done that, it's just my home address. And nobody's stopping in to be like, hey, is this your office? It doesn't happen, but it allows you to get a lot more traction online. It's really easy. In terms of YouTube, I think there's a ton of different examples of how people basically say, my freelance work, so if you're into digital marketing or graphic designer and Copenhagen, I guarantee if you look that up on YouTube right now, nobody's put it down. And so the first couple of people to make videos about it will probably end up grabbing more traffic than anybody else. And by the way, YouTube is powered by Google. So yeah, I mean, it's a no-brainer. It's a really easy way to get ahead of local SEO. And there's a million different guides on that, but of course, I kind of want to move on. This is still gimmicky and part of the job search stuff, but I feel like it resonated with a lot of people. The gimmicky stuff sells, right? And so the concept is this guy, he's actually from Lithuania. He dressed up as a delivery guy and rolled into 40 different offices with donuts and his resume hidden inside of it. And so basically, it says, most resumes end up in the trash, mine ends up in your belly, mine in your belly. Out of the 40 different deliveries that he made, he had 10 interviews after that. The idea is he's still out in San Francisco now hustling away at a ride-sharing app. If you wanted to get in front of somebody as a freelancer, this is the stuff that you could do that immediately people would be like, I've never heard that, I've never seen that, that's outstanding, this person's a fucking genius, we need to hire them yesterday. And nobody's doing it, you'll be the first. I mean, it's just people have such a short memory, that's what blows my mind. I've seen people do really custom videos for these people, and I think that that's also an opportunity. I do list them on here as well in the notes section, it's something to check out. But I want to save a little bit more time for some of kind of the next level stuff of SCM. Cool. So this is Josh Fechner. Josh Fechner is a nice growth hacker out in Santa Monica, and he got a job offer from Facebook within 2 days of basically creating an SCM campaign. So the idea is you can create a unique page on Facebook. It's either I'm looking for a job, or it's my first freelance gig and my name is blank. The idea is you can go into Ad Manager, and for €5 a day, $5 a day, you can essentially create a campaign that targets one specific company. And then within that targeting, you can also target those within marketing. So the idea is that it hits all the people that have listed. It has to be a large enough company. There needs to be at least 1,000 employees that have listed it on Facebook, but this would work for Maersk. If anybody wants to work for Maersk or any of the large companies, any of the consultancies out here, this is how you do it, because this shit spreads. The idea is try to put a logo somewhere in there, that way they're like, oh, is this us? That's weird. And on a next level thing to make sure that you drive the point home, you can also find email addresses for people and say, hey, I found a weird ad campaign. I don't know if this was something that you guys should be seeing. And then when they respond and say, yeah, was that you? And it's like, yep, what's up? We should definitely talk. I'm trying to court you. So what can we do next? So this is a really simple way. I've included the instructions on how to do this, by the way. There's 4 or 5 different examples. Nobody does it, and you would be unique if you were doing this today. I mean, it's just crazy. AdWords campaigns are even easier. From the perspective of job search, and I explained this the other day as well, the concept is find the first and last name of the hiring manager, find the first and last name of somebody that makes decisions. Target them based on exact match search within search ads. So the concept is basically creating a Google ad account for the explicit purpose of stalking somebody. And it's basically everybody Googles themselves when they get to a certain level. And again, if they don't actually Google themselves, somebody's probably going to tip them off to say, hey, this is kind of weird. Like, were you doing this? Obviously, you don't want to necessarily target Bill Gates or somebody that's like a super high, like Elon Musk probably isn't Googling his name. I don't know, maybe he is. But it's one of those funny things. I think there's a number of case studies where people have done this and had amazing success. So the idea is let this campaign run for 3 to 4 days, see what happens. The video that's in here, this is actually a video and it's linked. The guy explains that he's basically targeted 8 different hiring managers, got into interviews with 4 of them using this. And again, people don't remember this stuff. This was like 6 years ago, and people are like, that's amazing. And it's like, yeah, I guess. Like anybody that does SCM can do this. Like it's a 15-minute setup. And the ad text is actually kind of funny. Googling yourself is a lot of fun. Hiring me is fun too. So I don't know. I think that's clever, and that's a different way in. It's a different opportunity to work with a company or potentially get a job with a company, depending on kind of what your angle is. So some of the stuff with being really process-driven, I think probably from the freelancing side really helps. Out of curiosity, how many people in here want to freelance? Okay, cool. So I've been like talking about the wrong shit the whole time. Okay, out of the people here, how many people want to work for an agency? Okay. What is the rest of the crew then? I'm just like, oh, I didn't feel like raising my hand. Job search? Is that like the rest of everybody is like just looking for like a regular job? Okay. All right, fair enough. Well, then this helps if you ever get into an opportunity that you do want to scale some of the efforts that you're doing. So all of these different processes that I've explained are stuff that you can outsource. None of it is like an impossible science. I think anytime that we've set out to do something that seemed difficult, when we took the first step, it was really hard and frustrating and ridiculous. But the idea is that none of this is very, very hard. So why not outsource it? So I've seen people outsource their entire job search, which is actually kind of amazing. So you can get virtual assistants if you want to find companies that you would be ideal for, and then actually do the outreach messaging that I just explained, and then also sending out your resume and scheduling your interviews. It's a real thing, and for about 20 bucks a day, you can basically have close to 4 people doing it for 4 hours a day, which is pretty wild. So there's a number of different really simple ways to kind of set this up. I do link to 1 or 2 of them in here in terms of like getting some of the virtual assistants set up, but it basically saves you all the time, stress, and energy. And it's a great way of kind of circling around all of these crazy processes. Yeah, I mean, having thought of kind of what the room is made of, I thought a lot of people wanted to hustle on the side as freelancers. This is what freelancing looks like. This is what starting your own business looks like. This is the stuff that you don't get to see, which is sitting in friends' living rooms and working away on a Saturday night or a Sunday, or spending what little time you have after work in a cafe until they close, or going to events like this on a regular basis and not necessarily knowing whether or not it's going to actually turn into something. And that's the frustrating part about doing a lot of this stuff, is there is no immediate payoff. And that can be incredibly, demotivating. And I think the concept is there's a lot of opportunities out there. You just really have to take the first steps to make them happen for you. The last one. Last one I was presenting, I had my girlfriend in the room, and she's like, "You didn't read the last bullet point." It's like, find a partner. Find, obviously, somebody that's supportive of that type of behavior if you're going to be working and hustling on the side. I think it's incredibly important. I've already touched upon ask referrals, I think, 3 times because it's so important. In terms of like dealing with clients, I would say that this room doesn't necessarily have the interests, but I think I'll go into it just real briefly. When I did a lot of SEO for people, I found that I actually didn't get paid in full half the time that I basically said, pay me after, like the first month. So I'll never do that again. I take a minimum of 50% up front. Most of the time it'll be 100%, really depends on the client. But yeah, I've stopped like doing the first little bit for free because you always get screwed. So when you start getting real clients, bear that in mind. I've turned down clients before because they're dicks. And it's so difficult to handle a client that calls you every 5 minutes, or is frustrated and wants pixel perfect changes, or just is never happy. And you'd be surprised, it's this 80-20 rule of spending 80% of your time on 20% of your clients. It's just easier to cut them, and I've done that in the past. I think going hourly and getting a retainer monthly is the way to go if you're trying to scale whatever it is that you're doing. In terms of being able to raise your rates, it's the concept of supply and demand. So after you have 2 of these freelance clients, you don't really have to do it for the same price. You can name an absurd price. That's like the crazy thing, and I've had that happen like before, where somebody asked me how much for a website, and I threw out what I thought was an astronomical figure, which is like, I think it was like $40,000, and the guy's like, cool, done, and I'm like, fuck. Like, I wish I had asked for like 100. He didn't even bat an eye. So there's a lot of opportunities, and you'll kind of get that stuff as you get a little further out. Rounding out some of the last little bit here, the mindset stuff, again, for those that are in not only the job search, but also in the agency kind of mindset or the freelance mindset, is you only really need 1 gig to kind of jumpstart this whole thing. And I think people look at it in more of a comparative fashion of like, oh, look at that company who's doing so well, or looking at other people that seem to have figured something out that maybe you haven't. The idea is you really only need 1, and that starts this kind of incredible movement. It's not hard, it really isn't. I do think for those that are unemployed and are freelancing, I think looking back on how lethargic you can get when you're unemployed is so frustrating. And it's one of those things that realistically you will look back and laugh when you're too busy to have time to be bummed out. It's crazy. Being humble is super important for those that want to build up that portfolio. You're probably going to find the worst clients ever and be like, this guy's an idiot, they don't understand their business, and they're not worth working for, but you need that little logo on your portfolio in order to scale. So the idea is take the opportunity, see what happens. And a lot of those lead to others. So the concept is don't be afraid to jump into something. And often, hey, if it's not a great decision, move on. Not a big deal. For those that maybe are worried that they had kind of a weird version of a path to get here, nobody has an ideal path anymore, right? I'm on plan, I think I said the other day, like B5. Like I've gone around the alphabet like 4 or 5 times. So there is no answer to kind of like, yeah, I always wanted to be this. Most people don't end up doing that thing. And that's how most people get into freelancing or owning vineyards, which is weird. Yeah, I would say just be aware of the clients that you're working for or potentially trying to get jobs. CEOs or partners or co-founders, they're all people, right? And people get busy. They don't return calls. It's not because they hate you as a person or they don't think you're worth their time. It's because they're busy. I'm busy. And I don't always answer emails all the time either. And it's not because I mean to be mean-spirited. I just think there's so much more to that. Last little bit, rounding it out. For those that are looking at the job search in the next little bit, I really think this is like one of the most important pieces of advice I can give you. Fuck the no's, right? For every no, it means that you're a little bit closer to getting to a yes. The concept that I've always played with is gamifying it. For every no that I got, it meant that I needed to apply to 3 more companies or reach out and make 3 more connections. So that every single time that I got one of those, unfortunately, you have not gone on to the next set of candidates, whatever that email is, I'm like, great, awesome. Now I have to go find another company that I'm excited about. And you'd be surprised how well that works, actually. Because it's kind of like this never-ending game. It's like, got to collect them all. I think you have so much opportunity in terms of the templates there. And of course, with the different things that I've shown, if you're trying to get a job or you're trying to become a freelancer, I think there's a million different ways to it. Please use my slides. If you connect with me on LinkedIn, I'll send them to you, no problem. A lot of that stuff would take the average person weeks or months to probably collect and put together. And yeah, either I'm crazy for giving them out. I almost sounded used car dealer. Either I'm crazy for giving it away or, these deals are yours. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there. And I think it would be remiss to not try that out and see what happens. Again, I'm doing a growth hacking course May 21st through the 22nd. It's going to be at Talent Garden. There is a coupon code there. If you're interested, you can also connect with me on LinkedIn, ask me more about it. Happy to talk. And yeah, that's about it. I think I still have like 9 minutes for questions. 15. All right. Fancy. Does anybody have any questions?
I saw a photo of you with Gary Vee there in your presentation.
Yeah.
Can you tell us how was your meeting? How was he?
Yeah, it's not like we went on like one of those like 2-person bicycles for an afternoon around the city, Yeah, I met him over at Arctic 15. It was interesting. It's also that clever kind of outreach. So for those that don't know, Arctic 15 is basically, think of like Tech Barbecue, but in Finland. So the concept was the guy that is organizing it he had like stalked Gary for a number of weeks. He had gotten virtual assistants to tweet Gary like on a daily basis. And eventually he finally got through to one of Gary's assistants and then said, look, I'll let you shave my head on stage. Like, I'll do anything to get you out here. So he eventually agreed. I always think it's good to get to events early. So I got there early. And nobody really looks past the people in the front row when they're asking questions. So when they asked a question, my hand shot up. And then after he had kind of responded, he was like, well, we should talk about this. And I'm like, for sure. So I ran over to him and basically positioned a question that would make him sound like he was endorsing my company, Valuer. Because I know I've listened to a handful of his podcasts and stuff. So yeah, it was a 5-minute meeting at best, and I don't know. Yeah, it was interesting, but I don't know. It's not like we're like BFF club or anything. Any other questions? Yes.
So, do you have any regrets during your time being an entrepreneur so far?
Yeah, of course. I think, everybody gets the chance to, like hindsight is 2020. You know, and you get to realize like one of the worst fucking ideas that I ever came up with a business partner was called gluten-free VIP. Right, you laughed and we were like, yes, like nailed it, like this is brilliant, like we're high-fiving, like because it was such a bad idea. But yeah, he had celiac disease. This was during the height of kind of the gluten-free craze. And the concept was maybe there's an opportunity for a discovery mechanism for people that can still have some of the favorite foods that they've always enjoyed, but if they have an allergy, then here are the alternatives. A lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of energy just to find out that people are like, oh, I have to pay separate shipping on different products? No, I'm good. I'll just use yours to find things that I can buy online. And it's like, no, but that's not the business model. And so, yeah, we messed up. One of the most important things that we could have asked our customers was, is this something you'll actually use? Or is this just like something that's neat? And we didn't ask that question. So yeah, you know, like I don't know, for those, how many people want to be entrepreneurs or are doing that? Cool. Yeah, I mean, like everybody tries to like deter you, and I think I'm a better person for having gone down that path, but also like firing a guy with like 2 fucking kids sucks. And that's part of the trade-off is like having somebody like say, hey, I saw your product over here and like it's really made a difference, or like you've changed my business, and then you have to fire Deshad because there's no fucking money. And it's one of those really like challenging things to battle. And yeah, I think that's part of, unfortunately, the deal is that you have to go through kind of this slog to figure out like, all right, so that didn't work, but on the next one, I'm smarter now. So yeah, I don't necessarily regret as much. It's just kind of like, wish I hadn't done that. So I guess that is regret. I don't know. Any other questions? I hear, yeah.
When you hear a lot about the retainer, it's more of a US kind of business where you say, you have to pay me this and this much to take up with social media.
Right.
How is it when you're freelancing and how someone pays you as a retainer?
So the idea is exactly the same. It's not a US exclusive. This will happen with everybody that ever dips their toes into freelancing, especially within marketing, right? So you're just freelancing as design, and then they go, hey, do you know anybody that does like ads? And you're like, oh, well, I mean, I could certainly design ads too. All of a sudden now you're doing more work and they're kind of expecting the same rate. And it's like, okay, no, like if we can shift, I can actually start getting you more and build a team around this. It's your call. But I prefer to do this on a retainer. The idea is that you get exactly what you're looking for and you also get access to me. So the concept is the retainer allows you to continue to scale. And there's plenty of web development companies out here that are doing this on a daily basis. I mean, it's how a lot of people are able to continue to scale and get more opportunities. And of course, the people that get screwed at the end are the customers. That's why I hate agencies. So it's one of those things that you don't get to find out like the stuff that's actually working for them. You don't get to really have those little nuanced learning moments when you're using an agency. You're paying them to learn for you. And that's where you really lose out. But in terms of being able to have that internally, if you're the agency, hey, it's a good deal. So I hope that answers your question. Cool. Any other questions? Okay, cool. Well, thank you for having me, guys. I hope this was valuable, and feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to connect.